Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. Connecting Highline and our region. Share your story. Our Highline Voices, history, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary, pop culture. We are very motivated to provide a vibrant community museum and authentic social gathering place. It truly takes a village to raise a museum. Despite the challenges, our daily inspiration is our eagerness to build a stronger and more connected community. This museum is from the community to the community. Our passion is for our visitors to have access to a broad spectrum of information sources and cultural perspectives. Our Highline Voices.
Hi, my name is Nancy. I'm the director of the Highline Heritage Museum. And once again, we welcome you to our Highline Voices. This is an opportunity for us to share what's happening around us and hopefully the opportunity to connect with each other. So today we have Hanan. She will be introducing herself in a moment. But once again, just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come with us. And we're just excited. So Hanan, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, hi, and Nancy, thank you so much for having me on the show. My name is Karen Hanan, and I'm the Director of ArtsWA, which is your Washington State Arts Commission. So, we have a broad reach, and we hope a deep impact on our constituents all over the state, and really happy to be here.
Wonderful. We'll want to talk a little bit more about you. Who are you? And how long have you been with the organization? And then just get a little bit more idea of who is the one leading this wonderful organization.
Well, as people probably gathered, I do have a funny accent. So I'm a Brit. I'm from England. My dad was Irish, my mother English, but I grew up in England. And I discovered the arts early on from my family and so on, where it was very highly valued. And then when I was in the sort of high school age, I started putting on shows and things like that, mostly because, there might be some need for some money in the high school for some activity. And so my idea was, let's have a show and make some money. Of course, as we know, that in the real world, that doesn't always work. But I had a couple of successful moments back then. But I also didn't really realize that actually could be a job. So I ended up dabbling in the arts, playing a little bit of guitar, singing a little bit, writing a few songs, putting on more shows, and then getting other jobs and traveling around the world teaching and things like that. But when we moved to Washington State, my love for the arts and my desire to sort of really participate in it came forefront. So I ended up starting the Juan de Fuca Festival of the Arts out on the Olympic Peninsula as a 4-day multicultural, very diverse festival based very loosely in a small way on the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland. I started that, I built it up and ran it for 7 years through 6 festivals, and then handed it over to the community where it's still going strong today. I then moved into the more administrative side of the arts, running Arts Northwest, which is the service organization for the performing arts, a bit like the Washington Museum Association is the service organization for museums. And then 9 years ago, the governor appointed me to this job here at the State Arts Commission. I was very honored to accept the job, and I've been here ever since. And I love what I do. And I love the impact that this has on our communities on every level, whether it's artistic or cultural, whether it's community visibility, viability, the economy, our health. The arts touch every piece of our lives. And I'm really happy to have an amazing team behind me and to work with people like you. So I'm really happy to be here and to be able to talk a little bit about what we do and how we interact with you and some of your listeners, I hope.
Oh, this is great. I can feel your energy. Even we are recording this, I can feel it. I can feel that this is personal. And that is the next question I have for you is, how is your organization personal to you? But I think you're already tapping a little bit into it. But as you're speaking, I'm realizing one very, very basic question, and you might think, why is she asking this? But it's a simple question that can be interpreted in many different ways for different people. What is art? What is art to you? I know it's maybe really.
It is one of those questions, isn't it? It's that creative urge within us. We all have it. Maybe it's an urge to make music or to paint or to write, but it also could be to design vintage cars or something like that, or clothing, or maybe landscape design or flowers. There are so many ways to express your creativity. So I think art is different in everybody, but it's allowing us to express creativity in whatever way makes sense to you as an individual, maybe to you in relation to your community too, but it can be so many things. So I don't think there's any one single definition. I do believe that art is universal, and it isn't just about, high art, or that you have to be really good at something to be an artist. Everybody can be expressive. Everybody has an artist in them. And I would love to see everybody release that. And I hope that whatever we do can facilitate that and help that for people as they reach for their deeper creative selves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You talk about expression and opportunity to express. Do you think that the arts express an emotion and it's just an extension of an emotion? And the reason why I asked that question, right when we opened, we were hosting this exhibit, and that was the first art exhibit that we hosted here at the museum. And this artist came in and just brought his paintings and just wanted us to hang it. And I'm like, no. Yes, I like your art, but your art is an extension of you. And so I asked him to bring his brushes, his overalls, his cup of coffee, like the cup, and then really writing the labels as he's the one writing, the one talking to you. And so I see art in my own interpretation as an expression of ourselves, an extension of who we are as human beings, and then, stepping into that beautiful creative side of us. But also there is this component about emotions. The way we all connect as human beings. If you hear a sad song, oh my gosh, you go down listening to that. If you hear something that's inspiring, or if you see something that you don't understand, but moves you, and it's something that moves you in a practical way. It could be technology too, designing something, and it's like, oh my God, it makes my life a lot easier. Or like you said, vintage cars or something else. So another question that was prepared to share with you, but as I'm organically just talking to you about the human element of all of us, how do you think arts are interpreted in a different environments, like in this case with accessibility? What is the connection between accessibility and art when it comes with, like, just say, people with disabilities or people who are blind? And how do we tap into that, what art is in many different formats? It may be too complex question, but
I don't think so. I think the arts are very accessible, or they should be. Partly because it has this universal component that lets everybody participate in whatever way makes sense to them. And it's a very emotional thing. As you said, a piece of music can bring you up, bring you down. It can also, whether it's music or theater or dance or whatever your medium, it can help us deal with situations. It can help us bring out emotions that need to be brought out. So, for example, at the Arts Commission, we have a wellness arts in the military program, and that focuses on military-connected populations, but frequently people who have suffered trauma as a result of being in an active theater of war, for example. And they come back over here or to wherever their homes are, and they have to deal with what's happened to them. And frequently the arts are the medium that allow them to express and maybe exorcise some of the demons they've accumulated through mask making, or maybe writing a story or a piece of dance work or some music. And it's a very powerful way to express often what is difficultly expressed or inexpressible sometimes. So, I think the arts are connected to emotions of all kinds. They can be super happy. They can be very sad. They can be explanatory. They can be angry. And often, I see the artist are sort of leading us forward in many ways as a society. The artist's job is to push often against barriers, against difficult situations. We ask the arts to interpret, but we also, I think, in my mind, the arts should be used to help us deal with difficult situations and topics. Whether it's things like racism and so on, which are so apparent today. But the arts can sometimes be a bridge to allow us to have those deeper conversations that might get us to some kind of easier place, or maybe not a solution, because solutions are hard to come by, but at least move us forward together in some sort of direction. So it's a good question, Nancy. It's very complex, as you said, but whether you're blind or disabled in any way, or shy, or anything, I think the arts can fit somewhere in your life. And if you don't have them, your life will be a little less colorful as a result.
Yeah, I think it's also about connection. That is humanity, the fibers of it is how we connect with each other. And it is one of those universal languages, that you don't need to speak the language. I'm from Mexico, and you don't need to, and I'm also have hearing aids. And I kind of tend to interject my personal voice into the interviews. I apologize for that. But there is this part about all of us that we crave to belong. We crave to connect. We crave to see, can you hear us? Can you see us? Can we talk? And yes, there are some elements where the pain overlaps. There are some elements where the joy lifts us all, inspires us all. One time it was an exhibit about the 1930s that we did, and it was during the Depression. And I was afraid because I was inviting this group of Spanish-speaking parents that had never been to a museum before. And all the kids are teachers for generation. And so I had to do this tour in Spanish, and it was the very last day of the exhibit. And so I want people, I love the idea of introducing new concepts and new topics and breaking the barriers of why minority groups don't really go too much to museums. And I've been researching this for the last 20 plus years. And luckily, as the more I do this work, the more I'm able to identify exactly some of the elements. I don't know all of it. It's just learning and trying to be more open-minded to what the options are. But one of them, when there's just a lack of connection, the lack of and so when I invited these families over, I translated everything. It was about 1930s Depression in Highline. And I was like, there's no way, Jose, they're going to connect to this. There's just no way. But there was this, and I forgot the photographer's name, but it's this really famous photograph of a mom in a tent behind her, where she's holding her baby. It's the black and white photos. And so I replicated the tent, and then on top of the tent, I did blocks of wood with the naming of the different emotions: despair, sadness, hungry, scare, anxious, all of it, right? And then also did a 3D image of another famous photo of a child inside of a box. And so I built a box, and I life size. I printed the photo life size and put it inside the box. And then so when the parents and everyone were coming and I was translating what it was, everyone were connecting to it because they knew about those emotions. They know about not having enough money for food. They knew about the struggles of migrating, because we're talking about Oklahoma from the east to the west. And I realized that there was everything in that exhibit, everyone were connected. The only issue was just the English barrier. But other than that, they can connect on a human level, even if it was from a different time frame period, even if it was from a different era, place and context to what was happening. They were like, yes, I relate to this. Yes, I go through this. Yes, I identify this. And so from there, I realized that that we all crave to that connection, and that there are ways that if we tap into that human element, that we can tap on get to know each other better. And so I appreciate the arts. Thank you so much for leading this organization to allow us to do this. Going back to you, what is the heart or the values of Arts Washington? I mean, where is the actual the pulsing heart and the passion and the drive behind your organization?
Well, Nancy, our mission is to be a catalyst for the arts. So that means, our job is to kind of support organizations like yours and you across the state at every level, whether that's supporting the creative economy or supporting a creative district as it gets going and gets planned, or working in the state's public art program. We're responsible for more than 5,000 pieces of public art that are chosen by local communities and end up in communities. I think the core values for us, though, would start with equity and accessibility and inclusivity. We're very focused on the idea that we are a state agency, and therefore we represent and serve the whole state. All of our programs, we try and look at the data, we look at the distribution, we look at the way we're announcing things. We look at our language, and we're certainly not perfect. It's a constant journey, but I think we've made real strides in opening the doors to more people and more organizations, and to more people seeing themselves as welcome into this tent that is the Arts Commission, that is a state agency, which is often a pretty frightening place for people to be. Especially the more underserved populations frequently find the idea of government or state bureaucracy, they find it very intimidating. So we're trying to sort of take that away. And I put a lot of credence and kudos in the amazing team that I have at ArtsWA, that we have, who are so good at connecting with constituents, who never do not take a phone call. They'll always want to talk to you. They're always willing to help whoever you are, whatever your organization. Try and find a way to connect with us. So, that equity piece, the accessibility, the real commitment to service through the arts, by the arts, for everyone, I think is fundamental and central to everything we do.
Yeah, you talk a lot about inclusion, diversity, and accessibility, which is part of one of your core values. And as an immigrant myself, and working in the field and being mindful of, okay, what has been the past, what's happening in the present, and then what's going to happen in the next generation and the impact. I mean, I can see that when I came in 1997, it was not really that much of the crazy diversity, especially in the South End. Nowadays, it's just unbelievable crazy in the volume of changes on all levels, from the city infrastructure to culturally accepting and adapting, adjusting, to even challenging some of the ideas that has been working in the past, but it's not working in the present. And so having this huge community with high rates of demographics changing that quickly. I mean, you can see, one of the things I keep telling people, like, we are not LA, we are not New York, we are not Miami, which there's been generations already on adaptation on the mass numbers of immigration. It's not such thing here in the state. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to put ourselves in the same level as other cities where they already been having that transition. We don't have that one. And so having that language, like you say, how they would be more mindful in making sure it is accessible and it's not such a scary place to go. That's another reason why I am so happy that you're here, so people can see you, can hear you. It's not just me telling me, no, trust me, they are good people. They are fine. They are likable. No worries. It's in believing me versus seeing you. I hope that this interview also helped them to see that they are, there is an approachable, there's no such a scary entity. So it's just something that should be good. Okay, so talking about communities, the next question is, how do you measure the impact in the communities? How is your data looking like when you think about how are you making that impact?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, you need to have data to support the programs you're doing, especially as a state agency, because we operate with taxpayer dollars. So we want to be very mindful of them. We don't have very many taxpayer dollars, and we're always working to get more so that we can support our constituents in a bigger way. But it depends on the program, Nancy. So with our grants, for example, we're a granting organization. We give out grants to organizations. We support arts and education, and we support, grants to arts and education entities. We support individual artists through supporting organizations like Artists Trust. But we'd like to know how that is all going. So we do require a certain amount of collection of data from grantees, and that's can be everything from the sort of demographics of who is being served, how many people are being served, what are you doing as an organization to reach out beyond the typical populations that you served in the way you articulated, to make yourself be a friendly, welcoming place for people who maybe haven't typically come to your museum, your theater, whatever it might be. So we do ask for that data to be reported to us, and then we collect all of that, and that data, much of it will end up, with us. We'll use it for our own sort of purposes, so we can keep refining and bettering our programs, or maybe we can go after money to support a certain aspect of our lives together, because of what we hear. So, for example, we had a request in to support a tribal cultural affairs program, a request to the state budget, and it was funded. We obviously made the case, and we had a lot of support for it. So we will now be opening a tribal cultural affairs program that will allow us to interact directly with our 29 federally recognized tribes, but also with organizations who are working with and for tribal populations. We've just hired that program manager. She'll be starting next week, actually. And we're super excited about that program. But that will be another way for us, based on data, we hope. We knew that we needed to do this, but also based on the fact that, this is a population that we have not served. We know that. We know the data. We know we're not serving them adequately. So, we're hoping to make a change. So we use the data to basically inform our own decision making as to what to go after in the budget, what would make sense to support. But just to sort of come back to your question about data, if we're looking at, say, our creative district program, we're collecting data on things like, how much income is within a creative district, how many job starts might there be. We're actually not collecting that yet because of COVID. It got in the way, but that's part of what we're looking at. What about things like affordable housing? We can look at all that data to really assess the impact of the dollars and the time and the services that we put into something like the development of a creative district. And Burien, of course, has a creative district now. In fact, your museum is right in the middle of one of our newest creative districts, which is super exciting to see where that goes. With our public art program, we run the state's public art program. It's currently 0.5% of some capital dollars. There's a sort of formula around this, but capital dollars that go into building things like schools and universities and so on kick off right now 0.5% to the arts program for arts within, everything from elementary schools to UW. We are actually trying to turn that over through legislation coming up to 1%. But that program has been very successful in collecting data on who, for example, are the artists who are being chosen to do the projects that put art into these schools or buildings. And over the years, we realized we were not nearly diverse enough. It was very sort of Eurocentric, with typically white males as the main element within our roster of approved public artists. And now that's completely changed. So we took the data that we looked at, we made significant changes to the program and to the way we were recruiting public artists into the program, and now it looks completely different. So, data is critical. I'll mention one last thing. Our arts and education services around our state are very inequitably and unequally shared. if you are in certain zip codes, you're going to get much better arts education opportunities than if you're in other zip codes, and you can probably point to them yourself. Any one of your listeners, I bet, can say, oh yeah, I bet, that place probably has much better because they're a much wealthier community, and all that inevitably is going to be true at the moment. So it's inequitably spread around, but we don't have solid data to really support that. So we are asking the budget to support us so we can research every year, year upon year, the data that will say, okay, in this part of the eastern side of the state, they don't have the arts education they should have, but over here, they're doing okay, and things like that. So we can have the data to then help the legislators or any other sort of key influencer or key supporter to make decisions based on data. So we're hoping that we're firm believers in you got to have the quantifiable as well as the qualitative data available to make decisions. And, it's an important part of our work. We're far from perfect, as I said, but we do know how important it is. So it is absolutely a focus for every program in the agency.
I appreciate that so much. We are one of the recipients of youth funding for a lot of the programs that we do. And in the beginning, it was very tricky because we are not an art museum. So we are heritage. And my argument is, well, if you think about heritage, cultural heritage is all of us. And part of that is art. You represent and express yourself through art. And so we have a lot of hybrid formats where we have performances while giving a talk. We have artists displaying their art while educating this and that, while tapping into a heritage element to it. So there's a lot of intersections that takes place within expression. And so that's been an interesting journey for me to know, to be able to really say we also do the art here. And we do in many different ways. But going back to my list of questions I got for you, I know that we have one specifically about highlighting an artist or a program that you're excited about, or something that you're like, what, this person is doing this work. But before we go there, just hope you give me permission. One more question before that one, where is about the education in children in schools and how fast that's changing and how fast that's moving and to be able to adapt. I mean, I'm hearing you talking about the data that you collect and how you ensure that. But then there is all the silent demographics that they don't express that data. They don't express because there's still the lack of connection between museums and cultural organizations with cultural organizations with the public in general. And then I know that one of the tools to actually be able to reach them is through the schools. Now the schools are becoming more inclusive and more demographically diverse. And so I know that generation of kids will actually be the ones who will be able to appreciate more of the arts, museums and cultural and all that. We're talking about the first generation parents or even teenagers that don't know, and it might take years to even feel comfortable to go to a museum. And so I like the idea of coming up with more options and ideas on how do we do this different from what is done in the past. Last couple of weeks ago, we did this festival with the city of Burien. It's called Arts and Glow. Everything was glowing. And just that afternoon alone, inside the museum, were close to 1,000 people inside the museum. Outside, a lot more. And we have a drag dancer performing. We have an artist projecting into the building. We got music going and another artist doing another exhibit outside. And so we were trying to bring out everything from in and out. And so even the people that don't know us, that they hesitate us, they can still experience that the part of the festival. And the cool thing about that one, it was not just here, but it was also several parts in the city. So that was a really cool community-oriented project. But I do see the struggles, that the numbers of people that, even though that night the museum was free, still the percentage was lower than the ones that were on the street. And you can see the hesitation. A lot of the parents were like, hey, can I go in? And normally a lot of people of community of color, that I saw the hesitation. I mean, I do have my volunteers, I got a beautiful community, but it takes a lot of effort to like gain that trust, work on that trust, telling them it's okay, it's safe. So thank you once again for explaining that in data and demographics and how that is shaping the decisions and the services that you provide at all levels, either from in front of the state, representing the state, and internally from your infrastructure to the actually be able to measure the impact in the communities. So thank you for that. So now we're going to go to a fun one. Is when you think about fun and excitement, when you think about something that sparks you inside, will you be okay sharing an artist or an exhibition or performance or somebody that is just like, when you look at like, it just makes sense of the work that you do?
So you're asking me to pick my favorite child here. So, and I really do love every program that we do. And we do so many amazing things, you know. So let me give you a couple of examples. I love our State Poet Laureate program. And we run this with our delightful partners, Humanities Washington. The current state poet laureate is Ariane True. And, you know, if your listeners have not heard her speak, they should. I mean, she's an amazing poet, but she's also represents diverse communities. She's from the queer community. She's also from the disabled community to some extent. And she talks about being partly a little autistic on the spectrum. So she represents a lot of communities. She's also Native. So as a poet, as a speaker, as a person, she's remarkable when she's in community. And, you know, previous to her, Rena Priest was the laureate, and same sort of thing in a different way, but just as impactful. And, you know, able to come into a community, to be part of a school day, to do a public show, to sit down with people in different ways, to maybe to hike and write, you know, things like that. So it's a program that's very, very, it's very flexible, but it also highlights, you know, the written word, the spoken word in a way that is so delightful. And I love to see the program have as much impact as it does. So that's one. You know, the Governor's Arts and Heritage Awards, you know, we have the honor of putting together that program for the governor, and he has just approved this year's slate of honorees. And, you know, you've got people like Lino Tagliapietra, who, you know, the great Murano glass artist, who has been part of the glass world over here through the Museum of Glass, contemporary of Dale Chihuly, of course. And he is just finally sort of retired from working directly here as a glass artist, and is spending most of his time back in Murano in Italy. But he's been awarded an individual Governor's Arts and Heritage Award. So he'll be coming back and accepting that in November, hopefully from the governor, at an event on November the 15th. But, you know, the Governor's Arts and Heritage Awards allow us to recognize the best, the brightest, the most intriguing, from the young emerging artist all the way up to a champion of the arts like Mimi Gates, who's also getting an award this year for her many, many years of contributions to the arts through her work at the Seattle Art Museum, through philanthropy and so on. So again, it's a program that I think we've really elevated, and we're looking to elevate more. But it's, again, one of my favorites. I love our Creative District certification program. I love the work that we do with the Center for Washington Cultural Traditions around traditional arts and supporting cultures and heritages of all of our indigenous, tribal populations, but also all of the new immigrant populations coming into our state who bring with them their culture, their heritage that is equally as valuable. So the center, which again we run another program we run in partnership with Humanities Washington, is again one of my favorite programs. Fantastic. Heritage Arts Apprenticeship Program is part of that. So I could sort of go on, but the programs I believe that we have at the Arts Agency now across the board are very good examples of a really good use of taxpayer money, making a difference in everybody's lives in all of our communities. And we hope as the agency grows and evolves and the budget expands that we'll continue to be able to do more of the same, but also to expand it and to keep it evolving, because it should always be fresh. It should always be current. Today's programs might not serve the similar audience in 10 or 20 years. So we have to be nimble and willing to change and evolve as our communities change around us and with us. So, I see us as very much part of the communities that we represent and we serve. And hopefully that more and more those communities will see us as being, the friendly neighbor that they can come and knock on our door and we will open it and welcome them in.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you ended up there. Connecting each other and welcoming and warm is something that is so basic, but seems like it's one of the things that we struggle the most. That's, just even being able to smile on the street, you don't see that. Kids. So one of my, how can I describe this? One time we did this tour here, a field trip in the museum. And it was about during COVID. So there was all different ages. It was not an organization. It was a parent-based field trip, if you want to call it that. And there, when they left, they wrote a set of letters to me. And the next day when I arrived, I finally sit down and read them and allowed them, took me by surprise. I said, thank you for making us feel safe and welcome. Little kids don't write that if they had never experienced the opposite. I almost wanted to cry, because that tells that they, as little as they are, they can tell when they are in a safe environment or not, and they can recognize those differences. And so the fact that they can recognize, thank you for making us feel, or making me in that case, because they're just talking about themselves, they keep making me feel safe, makes me realize that the kids have way more potential than we give them credit for. Have you encountered, I know that art, who is an artist, a very basic question, but it can get complicated if you really dive into it. Have you ever encountered a kid that will you call an artist, or do you think that comes with experience and maturity and just being able to be more exposed? I mean, I'm wondering, of all these kids that actually have emotions and the kids that can feel, the kids that can create amazing things, have you, in your own personal, and not necessarily the organization, but as in a personal, have you encountered artists who are kids?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, I think depending on the level, you've got more or less, precision maybe, or expertise per se. But in terms of being able to express themselves through the arts, absolutely. I think every kid has the possibility to do that, especially if we give them the freedom to do it and the tools to do it. Our Creative Start program supports our littlest learners, from pre-K through third grade. And it's amazing, again, what a difference having a strong arts curriculum does for and with those kids. And especially when you start to look at, maybe you're going to teach your math program through an arts lens. And, suddenly you've got kids who maybe they have a hard time sitting still, but when you ask them you put the music on and you ask them to, sort of knock out a beat, or maybe they have to dance across the floor and find the parallelogram. And, I've seen the kids do this and they can all do it. So, again, if you give them that arts access and curriculum, I think they can shine. And then when you get even a little bit older, I've had to judge many a art show competition, or judge, some of the songs that kids are challenged to write. And it's incredible what they can produce, or even if you look at something like the Missoula Children's Theatre that comes to a school and is there for 5 days. And on the 5th day, they put on the show that they introduced on day 1. And I always remember, everybody at the end of day 1, because I've put this particular show on myself, there might be 100 kids will be in this theatre performance. And on day 1, they've been told what part they're going to have, and they're told to go home and learn their lines, come back tomorrow with your lines. And, to a kid, they're going to likely do that, mostly because they don't know they can't do it. And because, most parents would be horrified at the idea of having to learn, all the lines in a play like overnight, and probably couldn't do it. But our kids can do it. And at the end of that week, there's usually a remarkable show goes on stage. So I think we underestimate them all, but the arts is a beautiful way of opening up a kid, of giving them a chance. Often it's the way to keep a kid in school, to keep them in a peer group that is supportive. It teaches them teamwork. It teaches them creativity. It allows them to be their own weird little selves. Because the arts is often a very forgiving environment. For me, sort of anything almost goes within the arts world. We accept everybody as they are through that medium and that shared lens of the arts. So, yes, I've seen many a kid. In fact, every kid, I think, if given the chance, will show themselves off through the arts if we allow them to.
Thank you. Thank you for ending this interview in this way, because I think that we will be addressing and we will be working on addressing the issues that we are living constantly. But I think that the little ones are the ones who are going to be the next ones after us, and the ones who are going to be supporting either as a consumer or producing or a visitor of anything. They're going to be the ones. And if we start letting them know that they do have the power to be themselves, no matter how old they are, and then hopefully it will be, like I said, the ones going to be taking our jobs. They're going to be the ones.
Yes.
We are doing this.
Let's hope so.
Yes. Anyway, so it was wonderful to have you here with us. I'm glad that had a little bit of a glimpse behind the heart of the organization and what makes it pulsing and why, what are those values, and being able to know that it's a welcoming place for everyone and to anyone. And so once again, thank you. Do you want to say any last minute thing, or you're good?
Well, just, thank you to you for inviting me on. It's really been an honor and a pleasure. And, I think on behalf of all of the staff at ArtsWA, all of our board of commissioners, I think they really appreciate the work that you are doing and that there's so many across our state are doing. So any way we can support you, happy to do so. And, please tell your listeners, I'd love to hear from them at any point. Any one of our staff, I know, depending on the program they're interested in, or just to say hello. We're always available.
Thank you. I think that's a warm virtual hug that everyone needs. So once again, thank you. And I'm going to let you go. So
Okay.
Everyone, it's
Thanks, Nancy.
to have you here.
Yeah. Bye all.
Bye.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM.
We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. We want to embrace our differences and similarities. We are creating a place where visitors can connect with the stories and each other. Our mission is, we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.